I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family amongst lords of consciousness. I am the void one.
Dude.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop, here live on Fringe.fm, TalkStream Live, the Paranormal Radio app, also live on Live 365 and on YouTube. If you want to call into the broadcast, you can at 501-777-5631. It does not matter where you're listening from. It doesn't matter. What I mean to say is if you're listening on YouTube or not Facebook, but the radio station, you're all welcome to call in. So tonight I was going to talk about like aliens and stuff, but since after listening to that Terrence Howard interview, like I don't know. I'm going to wait till I get a guest on to talk about that because, man, that freaking interview kind of blew my mind, even though it's still a controversial subject. It's not something I want to tack alone, but it does make you wonder about, what seeded this reality. You know, even though after he talked and did all that stuff, after he explained the nature of reality, what Alpha and Omega is, I guess you could say. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. Charge and discharge, these opposing forces and the curvatures of space and pretty much everything that we've been talking about for the past 20 years. It does make you it's kind of bittersweet to see it land on Rogan's podcast in all kinds of different forms. And I can bet you money that I would think Billy Carson's probably going to be the next guy to be on Rogan. So it's good, right? Like Rupert Sheldrake says, consciousness is kind of raising its awareness across all platforms, across everybody. And there's just a lot of questions. I mean, you know, we're going to get into a little bit of something different tonight, but I think there's a lot of personal stuff that's going on too when it comes to, like, because if you read all the comments, if it doesn't matter who the information's coming from, whether it's Jesus, Terrence Howard, or a book, right? Like, if it's real, it's real. The real question is, are they going to test this stuff? Like, are they actually going to find out if what he's talking about is real? Like, are they going to care enough to send a probe to Venus to see if the pressure conditions change, to see if he's right about any of this stuff? It wouldn't take much for them to do unless they had an alternate agenda that had something other to do than like protecting the planet or what's best for us and our future, which some of you already. That's probably not going to happen. I think I'm happy about it, but at the same time, it's also kind of like disclosure. You know, every time we get somewhere with that, it feels like something's going to happen, something's going to break. But I'm a little run down mentally and physically. And also, this is kind of bittersweet too, because for me, like consciousness or the exploration of consciousness and this field specifically, when it comes to the esoteric, understanding consciousness, the nature of our reality, life after death, and all of these things matters to me more than the ET presence. It just does. It trumps every other subject that we talk about for me. What is consciousness, right? Like, what is the nature of consciousness? And how do we explore it? There's only so much we can do, right? We can meditate. We can try to get out of body. We can have psychedelic experiences. We can explore consciousness even through love. But how do we measure this stuff? There's just, to me, there's still not enough. There's just not enough resources behind it to look into. So it got me thinking about this today. If you go back to what Jason Quitt and even Aaron Voot and all the people that have talked about this place being seeded or life being seeded here, have there been like, I guess you could say a group of people or maybe some kind of force or a hidden cult of people or something, anything that's been watching over the growth of this planet when it comes to the nature of consciousness, like where we're headed and things like that. So it's been said to, by many people that there's monks in the Himalayas and that there's also like these astral warriors that are in the astral realm that are watching over Earth and all these kinds of fantastic things that we absolutely have no real proof of any of these things. None. But I still think it's worth looking at. So I always go back to the people that I consider were a lot wiser than me, maybe you, depending on who you are. What's up, Bryce or Wolf, Barefoot Hippies, Michael? That Terrence stuff is super trippy, man. Yeah, it is trippy, but I got to tell you, if he would get past the 1 times 1 thing, I think it would be it's like, I don't care about if 1 times 1 equals 2. I'm sorry. I don't. I understand it's a fundamental thing that he has to talk about to try to explain this whole thing, but it's hurting the message more. Like talking about 1 times 1 being 2 and all this other stuff puts a damper on the linchpin message. It puts a damper on this, this charge and discharge, the curvature of nature, and all of the stuff that we know when we go study nature that's real. We're normal people. We do these broadcasts. We talk about this stuff. We podcast about it, but we're not actors. We're not PhD people. We can't articulate this stuff, not the way they can. So they have a higher responsibility. So to start it out with trying to bust the entire fundamentals of mathematics is fine. That's cool. I get why he's doing that. But to me, it's just not as important as understanding the fact that gravity is probably not what they think it is. And that the plasma field and the electric universe theory that's been talked about for years and years, and people have been calling us crazy and all this other stuff for even thinking that it's real, needs to be taken seriously. Like, I hate that. I hate that we have to, play their game, right? And maybe Terrence is not doing that. Maybe he's just saying the hell with it. I'm going to do it the way I want to, and we're going to start off with 1 × 1 = 2. That's just as a strategy of war. I don't think, if you looked at this whole thing like a war of information, I don't think that's the best, point man to start out with. Well, whatever. But if you haven't listened to that interview, I don't know why you haven't. Like, if you've been studying these or interested in any of these subjects that we talk about here for God knows how long, if you're interested in them, I highly recommend you go listen to that interview. I don't care if it's Terrence Howard or Satan himself or God or whoever's sitting in that chair delivering that message on that show. That's not as important to me as the message, because, man, there is a ton of controversy on the internet about it. It does really make us look at where the state of our collective consciousness is today, because that show got millions of views more in a matter of weeks than all his other shows. So we thought, or at least all of the people that are in this group thought, that no one cares about these subjects, or we're considered fringe, or we're considered this or that. But the fact is, the data shows that there's a hell of a lot of more people that care about this and that are interested in it than we thought. Anyways, back to what I was talking about. Big shout out to Gareth, too. I want to thank Gareth for reaching out to me. I mean, as soon as the guy got out of the hospital, he reached out to us. And he wants you guys to know that he loves you all. And he's very thankful to be a part of this group, as we all are. And that when he started coming back to consciousness, he was angry. He saw these little dark-eyed beings like aliens. And he said, matter of fact, I might pull it up here in a minute, but he actually told me that he wasn't afraid. He felt powerful. He felt like nothing could hurt him. But what he did feel was anger. And he felt anger for some reason towards these beings. And I asked him, I said, is it like a dream state? Was it a dream state? Because he was on the verge of death again, He said, no, it felt more real than a dream is what he said. But he felt not afraid whatsoever, but anger. And then listening to Terrence Howard talk about how the reason why aliens have dark eyes, and they've been known to be seen with big dark eyes and skinny and slanted bodies and stuff like that, is because as we move out away from the sun, our atmosphere becomes pressurized to a point where we have to go, where I guess civilization has to begin to go underground to survive. And then after, I guess, hundreds of thousands of years or whatever, how many years, the race itself starts to evolve to live in that fashion. Bigger eyes, grayer skin, that kind of thing. And that this is happening across all of the universe. And that's a theory. It's not scientifically proven. But what if, just what if, all they have to do is launch one probe towards Venus. That's all they got to do, is launch one probe towards Venus, one out the other way. Let's just say both ways. Measure if he's right about the pressure fields of electricity, radiation, all the stuff he's talking about. Get the data back, and then hopefully they don't hide it from us. And then we can get some real resources behind this stuff. But that's still, even if we do that, that's still a long, long ways from studying consciousness, because I got a feeling that if we manage to, as a society, and I really hope we do, even if, let's say, Terrence Howard in this interview is like the catalyst, okay, that launches us into a new understanding of reality as a whole, we still have another step to go to understand consciousness, the waking state, like those types of things. So are we going to let go of religion? Is it going to cause us to even let go of sacred teachings? One of these sacred teachings that have been taught since I don't know what time has been the Western mysteries that we talk a lot about on the show. So I believe it was Rudolf Steiner that said that there are three different levels of initiation that all go but to the same place. So you can be initiated through Christianity. Christianity itself is an initiation into the mysteries or the understanding of the first 12 to 13 chapters of John. Or the Gnostic teachings or yoga. And all of these, he said, Rudolf Steiner said, all of these places lead eventually to the same understanding. And then he starts going into the astral realm, the imaginative faculties of man, and how you will, as you go through this initiation, you'll begin to understand reality in an entirely different way. But still, it makes you wonder, who's been watching over all this stuff? Because you hear things about the Great White Lodge or the Brotherhood or the Rosicrucians. So I always go back to the one person that I know got a ton of money and dedicated his life to investigating all of these things, which was Manly P. Hall. The guy was able to dedicate his entire life to all of this. What's up, Dale? Barefoot Hippie says, if I sell one pair of earrings for $1, it is technically 2 earrings. So 1 times 1 equals 2. Yeah, I get it. To me, it's arbitrary. It doesn't matter. But the thing that does matter is, like, if you think about what he's saying about the earth being flat, we still got people arguing that the earth is flat today. They go all out in nature and they see nothing but curvature in nature, but the earth is flat because they're more focused on being lied to than they are on finding the truth. I think you can get overly paranoid about this stuff, but that's neither here nor there. That's not even important to me. But what he was talking about is when I first looked at the flower of life, that symbol, I thought the same thing. Like, that's not just some flat symbol that's showing something cool. Whoever designed it, it had to come from a 3-dimensional design. It had to. Everything does. You just really, I don't want to get into it because I'll go on and on about this. I have a plan tonight. There's a book. It's a very small manuscript that we're going to get into that was written by Manly P. Hall called The Initiates of the Flame. I find this stuff fascinating. The book that I'm looking at now, it's old. It's got yellow and brown paper. It has the holy hexagram in it. It's got tons of symbolism. The Hindu swastika is in there. And this is how he introduces this book. He says that few realize that even at the present stage of civilization in this world, there are souls, like the priests of the ancient temples, that walk the earth and watch and guard the sacred fires that burn upon the altar of humanity. And you have to ask yourself, the whole time we're getting into this book, is this even real? Okay. Purified ones they are, who have renounced the life of this fear in order to guard and protect the flame. That spiritual principle in man now hidden beneath the ruins of his fallen temple. So, as we think of the nations that are past, of Greece and Rome and the grandeur that was Egypt, we sigh as we recall the story of their fall. And we watch the nations of today, not knowing which will be the next to draw its shroud around itself and join the great ghostly file of peoples that are dead. But everywhere, even in the rise and fall of nations, we see through the haze of materiality, justice, everywhere. We see reward, not of man, but of the invincible one. Is he saying invisible? No, invincible one. This book is decrepit. I might have to pull out the glasses. Or the eternal flame. Now, this is philosophy. This is still more of the introduction here. He says, a great hand reaches out from the unseen and regulates the affairs of man. It reaches out from the great spiritual flame which nourishes all created things, the never-dying fire that burns on the sacred altar of the cosmos, that great fire which is the Spirit of God. If we turn again to the races now dead, we shall, if we look, find the cause of their destruction. the light had gone out. When the flame within the body is withdrawn, the body is dead. When the light that was taken from the altar, the temple was no longer the dwelling place of a living God. Degeneracy, lust, and passion, hates and fears crept into the souls of Greece and Rome, and black magic overshadowed Egypt. Ask yourself, is he right about this? Think about what's going on in the United States today, okay? Degeneracy, lust and passion, hates and fears crept into the souls of Greece and Rome, and black magic overshadowed Egypt. The light upon the altar grew weaker and weaker. The priests lost the word, the name of the flame, and little by little the flame flickered out. And as the last spark grew cold, a mighty nation died, buried beneath the dead ashes of its own spiritual fire. But the flame did not die. Like spirit of which it is the essence, it cannot die, because it is life, and life cannot cease to be. In some wilderness of land or sea it rested once again, and there rose a mighty nation around that flame. So history goes on through the ages. As long as people are true to the flame, it remains. But when they cease to nourish it with their lives, it goes on to other lands and other worlds. Those who worship this flame are now called heathens. This gets weird. Listen to this. Those who worship this flame are now called heathens. Little do we realize that we are heathen ourselves until we are baptized of the Holy Spirit, which is fire. For the fire is light, and the children of the flame are the sons of light, even as God is light. There are those who have for ages labored with man to help him to kindle within himself the spark which is his divine birthright. It is these who by their lives of self-sacrifice and service have awakened and tended this fire, and who through the ages of study have learned the mystery it contained, that we now call the initiation of the flame. For ages they have labored with mankind to help him to uncover the light within himself, and on the pages of history they left their seal, the seal of fire. Unhonored and unsung, they have labored with humanity, and now their lives are used as fairy stories to amuse children. But the time will yet come when the world shall know the work they did, and realize that our present civilization is raised upon the shoulders of the mighty demigods of the past. We stand as Faust stood, with all our lore, a fool no wiser than before, because we refused to take the truths they gave us and the evidence of their experiences. Let us honor these sons of the flame, not by words, but by so living that their sacrifice shall not be in vain. They have shown us the way. They have led man to the gateway of the unknown, and there in their robes of glory passed behind the veil. Their lives were the key to their wisdom, as it must always be. They have gone, but in history they stand, milestones on the road of human progress. You remember the verse in the New Testament where Christ is talking about that, how he's talked about Zoroaster and Ahura Mazda and then Melchizedek and all this stuff. And then as soon as he came onto the scene, there was lots of references to fire, at least in the story. And even he said, I came to cast fire upon the earth, right? Here he goes on, Manly P. Hall says, let us watch these mighty ones as they pass silently by. First Orpheus, playing upon the seven-stringed lyre of his own being, the music of the spheres, which is pretty cool. Ronnie Pontiac is writing about that. I think both him and his wife. Then Hermes, the thrice greatest, with his emerald tablet of divine revelation. And through the shades of the past we dimly see Krishna, the illuminated, who on the battlefield of life taught man the mysteries of his own soul. Then we see the sublime Buddha, his yellow robe not half so glorious as the heart it covered, and our own dear master, the man Jesus, his head surrounded with a halo of golden flame, and his brow serene with the calm of mastery. Then Muhammad, Zoroaster, Confucius, Odin, and Moses, and others no less worthy passed by before the eyes of the student. They were the sons of the flame, and from the flame they came, and to the flame they have returned. And to us they beckon and bid us join them, in our robes of self-earned glory to serve the flame they love. Sounds a lot like fire worship. or some people are going to be saying Luciferian worship. They were without creed or clan. They served but one great ideal. From the same place they all came, and to the same place they have returned. There was no superiority there. Hand in hand, they labor for humanity. Each loves the other. For the power that has made them masters has shown them the brotherhood of all life. So it is kind of crazy to think about all this stuff. Like if you look into what like Terrence is showing Joe and what we've all talked about for years, the flower of life, sacred geometry, consciousness, and how it's all starting to come together through quantum physics and quantum mathematics, because we as humans, we need that intellectual understanding. We need formulas, which might be why Terrence Howard started this whole thing with a formula, because he knows it's in our nature to need a formula. Because I believe we haven't evolved yet enough to have faith in philosophy, which I know sounds crazy, but what he's talking about, I think, has been around since the beginning of time. But have there really been a race of beings? This is what I'm asking you. Has there really been a race of beings or initiates or heightened spiritual people that have come through to our time that have taught us things? Or are they advanced beings? Or are they aliens? Or are they just super enlightened human beings that have happened to reincarnate so many times that they finally lived out what they were really there to do? Or is it all of the above? It's pretty interesting to think about, because it could be none of it. But I think there's something to it. So he goes on to say, in this book, we will try to show this great thread, the spiritual thread, the thread of living fire that winds in and out through all religions and binds them together with a mutual ideal and mutual needs. In the story of the Grail and the legends of King Arthur, we find the thread wound around the table of the king and the temple of Mount Salvert. This same thread of life that passes through the roses, or the roses of the Rosicrucians, winds among the petals of the lotus and among the temple pillars of Luxor. There is but one, and he has this in capitalization, there is but one religion in all the world, and that is the worship of God, the spiritual flame of the universe. Under many names he is known in all lands, but as Iswari, or Amun, or God, or Amen. He is the same, the creator of the universe, and the fire is his universal symbol. We are the flame born. Listen to this. This isn't him talking about somebody. Right here, he breaks off and he starts speaking as if he's one of them, or he's channeling something. Listen to this. We are the flame-born sons of God, thrown out as sparks from the wheels of the infinite. Or he's talking about humanity. Around this flame we have built forms which have hidden our light. But as students, we are increasing this light by love and service until it shall again proclaim us sons of the eternal. Within us burns the flame, and before its altar the lower man must bow, a faithful servant of the higher. When he serves the flame, he grows, and the light grows until he takes his place with the true initiation of the universe, and those who have given all to the infinite in the name of the flame within. Let us find this flame and also serve it, realizing that it is in all created things, that all are one because all are part of the eternal flame, the fire of spirit, the life and power of the universe. And upon the altar of this flame, to the true creator of this book, the writer offers it and dedicated it to the one fire which blazes forth from God and is now hidden within each living thing. The hidden flame. That's a pretty intense introduction to something like that, right? I think it is. But I still think it could be the two parts of us, right? Like, if you take apart human thinking when it comes to this, we could take the right brain, and I think it's the more spiritual side of the brain that wants to delve into the mysteries and look at it as if it's spiritual initiates that have been guiding man throughout time. And if you take the left brain, which is a little bit more rational, and you dig into the research, it looks as if it kind of looks as if something seeded all of us, like something like a higher race, or maybe it was just beings of a higher technology taught us things. But if what we know about how things balance out in the universe, the truth is probably in the middle somewhere, I think. So I'm going to skip this forward, and we're going to talk about the initiates of the flame here. And he's got a picture of the elements of the earth, and he says, this is the cubed altar. Of the elements of the earth is this altar composed. It is the great cube of matter, or in this altar burns a flame. And in this flame, that is the spirit of all created things. Man, know thyself, thou art the flame, and thy bodies are the living altar. It's kind of there's always a reference to sparks or flames in these mystery teachings, right? Not too much about books about aliens, but mystery teachings for sure. Even in the newly Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which would probably be the newest channeled text other than like maybe the Kabbalion or something. He talks about that. Like, I think Thoth in that book says he saw rivers of souls or something. It's been so long since I read it, but just flames of sparks of thousands of souls. So here we go. Let's see if we can get through this in one radio session tonight. The initiates of the flame, the fire upon the altar. As far back as our history goes, we find that fire has played an important part in the religious ceremonial of the human race. In practically every religion, we find the sacred altar fires, which were guarded by the priests and vestals with greater care than their own lives. In the Bible, we find many references made to the sacred fires, which were used as one of the forms of devotion by the ancient Israelites. The altar of burnt offerings is as old as the human race and dates from the time when the first man, lifting himself out of the midst of ancient Lemuria, first saw the sun, the great fire spirit of the universe. Among the followers of Zoroaster, the Persian initiate, fire has been used for centuries in honor for the great fire god Ormuzd, who is said by them to have created the universe. There are two paths of divisions of humanity whose history is closely related to that of the wisdom teachings. They embody the doctrines of fire and water, the two opposites of nature, which is, again, that's something we've talked about for years. There's plenty of material out there to explain that now. Those who follow the path of the heart, or follow the path of faith or the heart, use water and are known as the sons of Seth, while those who follow the path of the mind and action are the children of Cain, who was the son of Samael, the spirit of fire. Today we find the latter among the alchemists, the Hermetic philosophers, the Rosicrucians, and the Freemasons. It is well for us to understand that we ourselves are the cubed altar upon which and in which burns the altar of fire. For many centuries, the initiate of fire has been nourishing and guarding the spiritual flame within himself, as the ancient priests watched day and night the altar fires of Vesta's temple. The ever-burning lamp of the alchemist, which having burned thousands of years without fuel in the catacombs of Rome, is but a symbol of the same spiritual fire within himself. And he's got a lamp over here on the left showing it. In the picture we see the ever-burning lamp, which was carried by the initiate in his wandering. It represents the spinal column of man, at the top of which is flickering a little blue and a red flame. And as the lamp of the ancients was fed and kept burning by the purest of olive oil, so man is transmitting within himself and cleansing in the laver of purification the life essences, which when turned upward, provide fuel for the ever-burning lamp within himself. Upon the altars of the ancients were offered sacrifices to their gods. The ancient Hierophant offered up sacrifices of spices and incense. The Masonic brother of today still has among his symbols the incense burner or censer, but few of the brothers recognize themselves in the symbol. So he's showing the symbol here of the Masonic censer. As the perfume rising from the incense burner was accepted in the sight of the Lord, so may our words and actions ever be a sweet incense acceptable in the sight of the Most High. The ancients symbolized under such things as this the development of the individual, and as the tiny spark burning among the incense cubes slowly consumes all, so the spiritual flame within the student is slowly burning away and transmuting the base metals and properties within himself and offering up the essence thereof as the smoke upon the altar of divinity. It is said that King Solomon, when he completed his temple, offered bulls as sacrifices to the Lord, and by burning them upon the temple altar. And those who believe in a harmless life wonder why so many references are made in the Bible about animal sacrifice. The student realizes that the animal sacrifices are those of the celestial zodiac and not actual animals, and that when the ram or the bull was offered upon the altar, it represents the qualities in man which come through Aries, the celestial ram, and Taurus, the bull in the zodiac. In other words, the initiate passing through his tests and purification is offering upon the altar of his own higher being the lower animal instincts and desires within himself. Among the Masonic brothers, we also find what is called the symbol of mortality. It is a spade, a coffin, and an open grave. And while upon the coffin has been laid a sprig of acacia, you remember Aaron Voot talking about the acacia? So, or evergreen. In the picture, we see the spade of the grave digger, which has been considered the symbol of death for centuries. Now remember, think about what he just said a minute ago. He said that the lamp and all of these symbols and all of their ceremonies represented them. So it actually does represent a spiritual thing, but it also represents a biological process too that's going on inside the body. In the Book of Thoth, that strange document which has descended to man at his present stage of evolution, as a deck of playing cards, he's talking about the tarot, we find a very wonderful symbolism. Of all the suits, that of the spade is the only suit in which all the court cards face away from the pip. And all the other kings and queens, the faces are looking at the little marker in the corner of the card. But in the spade suit, they look away from it. Now it is said that the spade, or I guess the playing cards, tarot, but now it is said that the spades has been taken from the acorn, but the occult student has a different idea. He sees in the spade, which has for ages been the symbol of death, a certain part of his own anatomy. If you will again turn to the picture of this spade, you will see, if you have ever studied anatomy, that the gravedigger's spade is the spinal column, and that the spade-shaped piece which is used on the deck of cards is nothing more or less than the sacrum bone. Might have to show these, but this bone forms the base of the spinal column and is also the spear of the passion. And through it and the foramina, which pierce it, pass the roots of the spinal nerve, which indeed are the roots of the tree of life. It is the center through which are nourished and fed the lower vertebrae of the spine and the sacrum. And the coccygeal bones that dig the graves for all created things. This point has been beautifully symbolized by the gravedigger's spade, which has been used by the brothers of many mystic organizations for ages. The currents and the forces working through these lower spinal nerves must be transmuted and lifted upward to feed the altar fire at the positive or upper end of the spine. We obviously know what's going on here, right? Once again, he's talking about the same thing, except explaining it through the processes of symbolism and masonry and Rosicrucianism and all this stuff. That serpentine force that goes through our body that lights up the pineal gland and causes us to have a spiritual experience and become enlightened, right? But I could be wrong, so let's continue. The centering of thought or emotion upon higher or lower things, as the case may be, determines where this life energy will be explained or expanded. If the lower emotions predominate, the flame upon the altar burns low and flickers out, because the forces which feed it have been concentrated upon the lower centers. But when the altruism predominates, then the lower forces are raised upward and pass through the purification, which makes possible their being used as fuel for the ever-burning lamp. Thus we see why it was a great sin to let the lamp go out. For the pillar of flames which hovers over the tabernacle, purified and prepared after the directions of the Most High, is the spiritual flame that, hovering above man, lights his way wherever he may go. The sun of our solar system, that is, the spiritual sun behind the physical globe, is one of these flames, just one of them. It began no greater than ours, and through the power of attraction and transmuting of its ever-increasing energies, it has reached its present proportions. This flame in man is the light that shineth in darkness. It is the spiritual flame within himself. It lights his way as no exterior light can. And this radiating out from him brings into view, one by one, the hidden things of the cosmos, and his ignorance is dispelled in exactly the same proportion as his light is spread. For the darkness of the unknown can only be removed by light, and the greater the light, the further back the darkness is driven. This is the lamp of the philosopher, which he carries through the dark passageways of life, and by the light of which he walks among the stones and along the narrow cliff's edge without fear. But although he gains all other things and have not the light within himself, he cannot know where he goes. He cannot watch his footsteps, and he cannot dispel his ignorance with the light of truth. So he's talking about the light of the philosopher, right? Do you know why in Terrence's interview they never considered Walter Russell's periodic table of elements worthy of even taken seriously? It's because Walter Russell approached science, the elements, reality, everything from a philosophic point of view. In other words, he approached it from a wisdom point of view, or a point of view of nature, because that's where the keys to the mysteries are, is in nature. It's not somewhere secret or in some secret order or any of that stuff. It's right in nature. Therefore, let each student watch the fire that burns upon his altar. Let him also make that altar, his body, as beautiful and harmonious as possible. And let him also sacrifice upon the altar the frankincense and myrrh, his actions and his deeds. And as in the tabernacle he offers all upon the altar of divinity, so let him day by day dispel the symbols of mortality, the coffin and the open grave by which he prepared himself through the mastery of the lower emotions within himself, and recognize that no matter how crystallized or dead his life may be, the fact that he exists at all proves that the sprig of acacia, or the promise of life and immortality, is somewhere within himself. Think about what he's saying here. He's not talking about this. He is talking about it philosophically, but it's like it's famous Manly P. Hall. That's how he does everything. So he's kind of hiding biological processes that happen in here too, so that you can have a spiritual experience and see what he's talking about. So his life may be the fact that he exists at all proves that the sprig of acacia, the promise of life and immortality, is somewhere within himself. And although the flame of life may appear faint or cold, if he will supply the fuel by his daily actions, he will kindle the altar flame once more within himself, which shining forth will also help his brother to kindle the flame, which is a living sacrifice to the living God. So you can tell philosophically right now that God is everything. Like, it's just life and light. It's not a certain name or a certain being that's separate or anything. It's just consciousness or life and light. All right, so this is called the sacred city of Shambhala. In every mythology and legendary religion of the world, there is one spot that is sacred above all others, to the great ideal of that religion. To the Norsemen, it was Valhalla, the city of the slain, built of the spears of heroes, where feasting and warfare was the order of the day. And here the heroes fought all day and reveled by night. Every day they killed the wild boar and feasted on it, and the next day it came to life again. In the Northland they tell that Valhalla was high on the top of the mountains, and that it was connected to the earth below by Bifrost, the rainbow bridge, that up and down this bridge the gods came, and Odin, the Allfather, came down from Asgard, the city of gods, and worked and labored with mankind. Among the Greeks, Mount Olympus was held sacred, and here the gods are said to have lived high on the top of a mountain. The Knights of the Grail are said to have had their castle among the crags and peaks of northern Spain on Mount Salvert. In every religion of the world there is a sacred spot. Meru of the Orient, and Mount Moriah and Mount Sinai, upon which the tablets of law were given to man. All those are symbols of one universal ideal. And as each of these religions claimed among the clouds a castle and a home, so it is said that all the religions of the world have their headquarters in Shambhala, the sacred city in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia. Looks like somebody put like White Island or something here. I don't know. It's somebody scribbled something. I can't see it. Anyways, among the Oriental peoples, there are wonderful legends of the sacred city, where it is said the Great White Lodge or Brotherhood meets to carry on the governing of world affairs. As the Asuras of Scandinavia were 12 in number, as Olympus had 12 gods, so the Great White Brotherhood is said to have 12 members, which meet in Shambhala and direct the affairs of men. It is said that this center of the universal religion descended upon the earth when the polar cap, which was the first part of the earth to crystallize, became solid enough to support life. Science now knows that not only does the earth have two motions, that of rotation upon its axis and revolution around the sun, but that it has 9 other motions according to the Flammarion, the French astronomer. And one of these motions is that of the alternation of the poles. In other words, someday, that part of the Earth's surface, which is now the North Pole, will become the South Pole. And therefore it is said that the sacred city has left its central position and after much wandering is now located in Mongolia. Those who are acquainted with the Mohammedan religion will see something of great interest in the pilgrimage to the Kaaba at Mecca, where thousands go each year to give honor to the stone of Abraham, the great aerolite, upon which Muhammad is said to have rested his foot. Old and young alike, some even carried wind through desert sands and endure untold hardships, many coming from great distances to visit the place they cherish and love. In India, we find the same thing. There are many sacred places to which pilgrims go, even as the Templars went in our Christian religion to the sepulchre of Christ. Few see in this anything more than an outward symbol. But the true student, in other words, if you can see through the symbolism, or the occultist, the true student recognizes the great esoteric truth contained therein. The spiritual consciousness in man is a pilgrim on the way to Mecca. As this consciousness passes upward through the centers and nerves of the human body, it is like the pilgrim climbing the height of Sinai, or the Knight of the Grail returning to Mount Salvert. When the spinal fire of man starts upward in its wanderings, it stops at many shrines and visits many holy places. For like the Masonic brother and his Jacob's ladder, the way that leads to heaven is upward and inward. The spinal fire goes through the centers or seed ground of many great principles and worships at the shrine of many divine essences within itself. But it is eternally going upward. And finally, it reaches the great desert. And only after pain and suffering and long labor does it cross the waste of sand. That is, I guess, the ultimate goal of the higher man. But finally, he crosses the sacred desert, and before him in the heart of the lotus rises the golden city, Shambhala. And he actually has a picture here, which I'm going to show after the break. So when you look at these symbols, you don't think that it's crazy, but he's showing the frontal sinus bone here. This is what I like about Manly P. Hall, because he never put all of the secrets, even in the Secret Teachings of All Ages. But if you read like all of his books, you'll really start to understand the bigger picture, that the fractal truth of things, like we talk about all the time on this show. the symbolism, the symbols of the sky, whether it's astrology, the symbols of alchemy, whether it's the elements, or all of this stuff correspond astrologically and biologically both. I guess, the word's still out if any of these stories are true as far as what happened in actual history, but it gives away a pretty cool truth to what happens in the body. Anyways, we'll have to take just a short radio station or Fringe FM break, and then I'll see if I can open this up so if you're watching this, you can see the pictures of it. But it's just kind of showing where Manly P. Hall was talking about this and located a lot of these things. Because if you look at symbols in a different way, you don't have to just be like, I guess, a slave to the symbol itself, right? Which we don't want to be. Let me see if I can. Yeah, here we go. All right, we'll be right back. We just got to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Has gravity got you down? Do you not understand the difference between a wave or a particle? What about the planets? How do all those rotate around each other? Laws of physics and other sciences can be confusing. So the next time you're curious just how exactly E equals MC squared, hire a highly trained and qualified professional. That's right, it's Space Lawyers. Space lawyers are skilled in litigation with the laws of time, space, cosmic ghost pirates, and various other lawyerings. Each space lawyer has a PhD in space law from the Cosmic Hall of Space Justice, and they can get you out of just about any sticky situation. So stop bonking your head on things or accidentally creating big bangs with your haphazard studies in quantum physics. Leave all of that to the highly trained professionals prepared to litigate these laws for you. Just call 1-800-SpaceLawyer.com for more info. Space Lawyer! Space lawyers cannot be used in a regular court of law. They can only accept cash and no cosmic traveler checks nor Visa debit cards. Please wait up to 4 cosmic business days for our space lawyers to get back to you.
Hi, this is Kronox from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
This is Barbara Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe the results.
Bumper stickers are a fun side hustle with low-cost investment that has built-in advertising to attract local customers in parking lots, rallies, gatherings, conventions, venues, and more. You could potentially sell these bumper stickers on consignment to local businesses, tattoo parlors, head shops, or any other independently owned store that might gear toward the fringe. Bumper stickers are great gift-giving ideas for friends and family. Also, a way to wake up your fellow travelers on the path without having to waste energy in tiresome debates. No car? No problem. Bumper stickers will stick to just about anything with a semi-smooth surface. Go to www.justbsme.com and get your bumper stickers today.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Roop. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
3, 2, 1, blast off!
Here in Mission Control, the Flight Operations Director commented that he felt like
one of the saddest features of our modern world is being a product of rather materialistic civilization.
Emergency! Emergency! A major catastrophe has occurred.
Was this the future you had in mind for us?
They must be smoky space.
Dust.
They must
be smoky space. Dust.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void here live on the Fringe FM. I'm your host, Joe Roop, and we're going to get back into Manly P. Hall's Initiates of the Flame, which I think is kind of fascinating. Remember, like, Bryce commented in the chat, what does an actor know about science and stuff? Well, I mean, what does anybody know about anything? You know, honestly, I'm like I said, before you criticize the cuisine, eat the food, like when it's finalized, right? Go watch the interview. And then I guarantee you're going to have some questions when you come out of it, but you're also going to know that, oh, hell, man, he's talking about stuff that a lot of people have been talking about. For some reason, it's just now been put together and put on Rogan's podcast, which happens to be a lot of different things. I mean, look, we can be critics and cynics all day long, but we are making progress, slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. Like we, as esotericists, understand the balance of things, just like we need science, but we also need spirituality. You know, just like we need logic, we also need creativity and expression. And it's the bridegroom, obviously. You know, how he explains electricity and magnetism, or the two circles coming together. It's pretty much that symbol of alchemy is what it is understanding the perfection of things. But once we can really like blend all this stuff together and make it like a new science, which I know sounds crazy, but I'm hoping one day that science will be a whole different thing. You know, you won't have like religion and science, or philosophy and whatever. It doesn't always have to be opposing forces. I think I got this thing where I can show you the picture, though. Maybe. Hold on. No, probably not. It's not good, too, to try to do this for both radio and... yeah, let's see. So you see that right here is what I'm reading here. I think you can see it, right? So the lotus wand is a wand that's also, this is like a wand that you see in Rosicrucian orders, but also in magical orders like the Golden Dawn or whatever. It's just different. Like, and this one is probably an older model of it. The newer ones have all the colors of the zodiac, and but this one actually has like a serpent going up it, you know. And it says, the lotus, may your consciousness be lifted upward through the tree of life within yourself until in the brain it blossoms forth as the lotus that, rising from the darkness of the lower worlds, lifts its flower to catch the rays of the sun. And right here, look. In the spreading of the bone between the eyes called the frontal sinus is the seat of the divine in man. There is a peculiar gaseous material, floats, or rather exists, or is the fine essence which we know as the spirit. So this is where he's telling you the spirit is. This is the lost city in the sacred desert, connected to the lower world by the rainbow bridge or the silver cord. And it is to this point in himself that the student is striving to rise. This is the sacred pilgrimage of the soul, in which the individual leaves the lower man and the world below and climbs upward into the higher man or higher world, the brain. This is the great pilgrimage to Shambhala. And as the great city is the center for the direction of our earth, so is the corresponding great city in man is the center for his governmental system. So you can see how it's kind of like all fractal truths, right? This is what happens like when you blend things together, when the two become one. Just like in your mind, the two hemispheres of your brain that also have 12 convolutions in the brain. But if you just look at it as fire and water, or those two hemispheres coming together, we can understand things on a higher level and not just call it philosophy. But you can actually see the science in it too, which the flower of life kind of shows us, and sacred geometry. And so, in my opinion, like, it's only just now, I could be wrong, but it's only just now that we're getting past this polar mindedness, you know. Well, it's either this or that. No, like that's primitive. That's a primitive way of thinking. It's not always just either this or that. Like, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. Are they aliens or are they gods? Oh, what the hell? Like, what if the truth is in the middle? You see what I mean? I hope you do, because I don't want to rant too much. So, anyways, when any other thing governs man, he is not attuned to his own higher self, and it is only when the gods representing the higher principle come down the rainbow bridge and labor with him, teaching him the arts and sciences, that he is truly receiving his divine birthright. In the Orient, the students look forward with eager longing to the time when we shall be allowed to worship before the gates of the sacred city, when he also shall see the initiates in silent conclave around the circular table of the zodiac, when the veil of Isis shall be torn away and the cover lifted from the Grail cup. Let the student remember that all of these things must first happen within himself. Here, let's listen to this part. I think this part's pretty important. At least I do. I don't know about what you think, but let the student remember that all of these things must first happen within himself before he can find them in the universe. They have to happen within before they can be known without. The 12 elder brothers within himself must first be reached and understood before those of the universe can be comprehended. If he would find the great initiates without, he must first find them within. And if he would see the sacred city in the lotus blossom, he must first open that lotus within himself, which he does, petal by petal, when he purifies and attunes himself to the higher principles within. The lotus is the spinal column once more, its roots deep in materiality, its blossom the brain. And only when he sends upward nourishment and power can the lotus blossom within himself blossom forth with its many petals, giving out their spiritual fragrance. So, sometimes you will see in the store windows funny little Chinese gods or Oriental Buddhists sitting on the blossom. In fact, if you look carefully, you will find that nearly all of the Oriental gods are so depicted. And this means that they have open within themselves that spiritual consciousness, which they call the Sushumna. You have seen the funny little hats worn by the Hindu gods. They are made to represent a flower upside down and once more like the rod of Aaron that budded. We see the reference made to the unfolding of consciousness within. When the lotus blossom has reached maturity, it drops its seed, and from this seed new plants are produced. It is the same within the spiritual consciousness, which, when the plant is finished and its work is done, is released to work and produce other things. So you remember in his other manuscript, what was it called? What the ancient wisdom expects from its disciples. He states that man is an inverted plant. In the Western world, the lotus has been changed to the rose, the roses of the Rosicrucian, the roses of the Masonic degrees, and also those of the Order of the Garter in England, all stand for the same thing, the awakening of consciousness and the unfolding into full bloom of the soul qualities of man. When man awakens and opens this bud within himself, he finds, like the gold pollen in a flower, this wonderful spiritual city, Shambhala, in the heart of the lotus. When this pilgrimage of a spiritual fire is accomplished, he is liberated from the top of the mountain, as in the ascension of Christ and the spiritual man, freed by his pilgrimage from the wheel of bondage, rises upward from among his disciples, the convolutions of the brain, the 12 convolutions of the brain, with the great cry of the initiate, which has sounded through the mystery schools for ages. When purified, the student goes onward and upward to become a pillar and the temple of his God. With that last cry, the true mystery of Shambhala, the sacred city, is understood, and he joins the ranks of those who, in white robes of purity, their own soul bodies, gaze down upon the world and see others liberated in the same way, and who also sound the eternal tocsin, or consummatumist. It is finished, which is what Jesus said after he died. You know, he said, Father, why have thou forsaken me, and all this stuff. Faced his death, faced total annihilation, I guess you could say, and loneliness, probably one of the craziest moments of our life. And once that fear was overcame, he said, it is finished, it's done. I'm going to show you a picture of this too, because he's got a picture of the Philosopher's Stone here, which I think is pretty cool. Let me see if I can get this to show. So the Philosopher's Stone, this is the true stone of the philosopher, which gives him power over all created things. This stone is himself. The experience of his evolution have cut and polished the rough stone until in the initiate it reflects the light of the creation from 1,000 different facets. Right? So he's got all of the, you could see this here. It shows the 12 constellations, or the 12 zodiac signs. I've listened to these guys that run certain orders and stuff argue over what the Philosopher's Stone is too, and a lot of times you'll get involved with these discussions, and you'll begin to notice like certain people just want to be right. Other people believe they're right, and they're not going to back down because they want, they believe they have the truth, so they're not going to back down. And then I think none of that crap matters, like who the person is. Like, we're not in high school. I don't care how cool somebody is or how right they are. None of that stuff matters. The message and the truth is what matters. At least for me. All right, here we go. The mystery of the alchemist. There are very few occult students today who have not heard of the alchemists. But there are very few who know anything about the strange men who lived during the Middle Ages and concealed under chemical symbolism the history of the soul. At a time when to express a religious thought was to court annihilation at the stake or wheel, they labored silently in underground caves and cellars to learn the mysteries of nature, which the religious opinions of their day denied them the privilege of doing. Yeah, they killed them. Giordano Bruno was still killed, even though he tried to, he refused to worship their God because he thought, like Terrence Howard said, but we all know this, but he thought that God was bigger than what they were teaching in their books. And they killed him. They hung him upside down and burned him alive. Let us picture the alchemist of old, deep in the study of natural lore. We find him among the test tubes and retorts of his hidden laboratory. Around him are massive tomes and books by ancient writers, and he's a student of nature's mystery, and has devoted years, lives maybe, to the work that he loves. His hair has long since grayed with age, and by the light of his little lamp he reads slowly and with difficulty the strange symbols on the pages before him. His mind is centered upon one thing, and that is finding of the Philosopher's Stone. With all the chemicals at his command, their various combinations thoroughly understood, he's laboring with his furnace and his burners to make of the base metals the philosopher's gold. At last he finds the key and gives to the world the secret of the philosopher's gold and the immortal stone. Salt, sulfur, salt, sulfur, and mercury are the answer to his problem. From them he makes the philosopher's stone, from them he extracts the elixir of life. With the power that they give him, he transmutes the base metals into gold, and the world laughs at him. But he goes on in silence, really doing the things that the world believes impossible. And after many years of labor, he takes his little lamp and silently slips away into the great unknown. No one knows what he has done, or the discoveries that he has made, but he, with his little lamp, still explores the mysteries of the universe. As the close of the 15th century clouded him with mystery, there's a hint right there, so the dawn of the 20th century is crowning him with the glory of his just reward, for the world is beginning to realize the truths that he knew, and to marvel at the understanding which his years of labor had earned for him. Think about that. Think about what he's saying. Like, how many people have been laughed at only later to find out that they were actually right? Not only were they right, they were destroyed, killed, hung upside down, whatever. And later on, turned out that they were right. I mean, you could go back into all the philosophers, and I guess you could say physicists, scientists, whatever. There was a ton of them. Let's see. Looks like 33. Is this 330 area code? You're on the air. Who are we speaking with?
Rubestar.
Who? What's your name?
Rubestar.
Rubestar?
Yeah.
Okay, what's up, man?
I caught you on Low Value Mail, and so I subscribed to you, and I just caught you live.
Awesome. That was a fun show. I liked that show. Fun people.
There's a couple things you said that really hit home with me, but right off the bat, I was wondering if you give out your birthday. I'm into astrology and I was just curious what your birthday was.
April 1st, 1982.
Okay.
I don't hide much on the show. Never have. What's up, Barney? I didn't see you there. What's on your mind, man?
Not much really. Just didn't even know if I'd get through. I was curious to know your birthday, and I guess I just wrap it up with a couple things that you said was mentioned about like getting into numbers and studying things, and you got to be careful because it might make you manic.
Yeah.
You remember saying something along those lines? Yeah, I could testify to that firsthand. I had an experience like that, and
Really?
When I heard you say that. Yeah, I ended up getting arrested actually because my family called the cops on me just because I wasn't acting like myself. But I was following lines of thought, and it's one. You start making connections, and it's like one right after another, and you kind of. I mean, obviously, you lose touch with reality, but it is a bit of a rush, you know.
What were you studying? Was it gematria, or was it just number code, or what?
Are you familiar with quantum grammar syntax structure?
Not at all. It sounds cool, but not at all.
It's basically it's David Wynn Miller, or David-Wynn, Miller is how he writes his name. And how could I sum it up real quick? All the laws that we have are actually incorrect because of the grammar that they use. And so to make a proper contract, a correct contract, you have to follow a certain sequence, and they use numbers to identify what the noun, the verb is. And if the sentence is correct, it'll read the same forwards and backwards.
Huh,
so I was really, yeah. You can check out the Quantum Grammar Syntax channel if you're interested. He claimed to be a 92nd degree Freemason also, as a side note. And he's got a ton of interesting stories.
Well, if he's claiming 92nd degree, then that means he was into Egyptian Freemasonry, which technically isn't considered legitimate Masonry, but was a form submitted to the College of Masonic Rites, as another Masonic school. So, I mean, it's still legit in my eyes, but yeah, that's cool.
Well, he was saying we all read on a first grade level, and when you start studying this quantum grammar construct, you go to the third grade, so to speak, okay? So you understand things on a different level. And it made me think of how when the Masons join, they start right off as a third degree. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, they have to go to the first 3 degrees, which is the first, the Blue Lodge, or the first initiations of Masonry, which is the first 3 degrees, and then all of the other schools just dive deeper into the mysteries, or dive deeper into those 3 stages of the mysteries, basically, is what it is.
So I kind of interpret it as you jump up to the third grade reading level rather quick if you get into that.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that is, but that's the way I thought of it. And I kind of thought when he claimed to be a 92nd degree, he was kind of playing a joke on us because 9 plus 2 is 11. Let's see, how did this go? So
I can see where you're going with this. Like that, the numbers are ruling your mind, aren't they?
Well, here's the thing. If you want to be on the level,
right,
if you're correct. And so if you're third degree, if you're any of the degrees away from 100, you're not on the level. And 11 is, in the tarot cards, is the justice. Right? And he was a judge.
Really?
This David Wynn Miller. He actually would get judges disbarred. It's a really unique story. You might really enjoy getting into it.
What's it called again? I want to look this up. I mean, not tonight, but I definitely want to look this up.
Okay, so if you just go into YouTube, and I think it's Quantum Grammar Syntax, a channel with a lot of his videos will pop up. And it's really super interesting is every major world event since the Berlin Wall fell, you could kind of connect to him and his technology.
Really? So what happened to you? So you got involved with this, started kind of decoding everything, and then your family, what, they just thought you went nuts, or what?
Yeah. I also had a supernatural experience. And it was a chain reaction of events that actually happened to me personally. I had somebody perform Reiki on me. I moved into a deceased relative's house. I actually seen him in the back of my head one day, talking to me, and I just got a completely different understanding of how the mind works. I kind of started perceiving things. You ever see that movie Being John Malkovich?
Yeah.
How at the end of the movie, there's a bunch of people going inside this little room so that they could be in this baby. As the baby lives, these people are going to be like the audience watching her whole life, if you remember that part.
Right.
So I started experiencing that, and then I went to this tomb, James A. Garfield's tomb in Lakeview. It's like in Lakeview, Ohio. And I don't know, there's a bunch of weird things that started happening with, like, I don't even know how accurate things were, but I got the perception that the Masons don't really die, that they kind of just reincarnate through the pineal glands for a lot of people. And
that's kind of an understanding of it for sure. Yeah. But it's not like the brain can, first and foremost, I got to tell you, for a guy that I myself have had mental when I was in my 20s, I had agoraphobia and all kinds of stuff. The brain is so powerful, man, that you have to be careful, no matter what you're learning or discovering, because you can get over fascinated with it, and the brain can definitely turn on itself. It definitely can. And then start affecting your life. It doesn't mean you're a psycho or you're a nutcase. It's more like unlocking a code, and then you're just fixated on it, because now you understand something different. But you're still in a world surrounded by people that aren't even thinking about anything close to what you're thinking about. So you got to be a little wiser when you go through these things, because they will lock you up. They'll put you in a nut house if you're not careful.
Yeah, that pretty much what happened to me. But yeah, so it was a chain reaction of events. And then my sister just showed up out of the blue, spent 5 minutes with me and said, yeah, he ain't right. I'm calling the cops. And
oh, man,
cops showed up. Yeah, cops showed up, didn't say a word. Things got out of hand and whatever. But that was like in 2022. It was actually a really wonderful experience. I almost recommend everybody going to jail for 4 months, just
so they can see how the world really works, right? Yeah.
I mean, just an appreciation for freedom and the simple things. I mean, like when you're in jail, you kind of just, it'll break you down to your most base elements.
Yeah.
And you're stuck in there with, you don't get to choose who you're in there with, and it's up to you. Like, how good are your social skills? How do you do in these situations, As a side note, so I got a friend that's in prison. So I made a friend, but he's serving like 15 years for something. So he calls me every now and then. And I sent him some really good astrology books. So I got him into astrology. And he said, what was his stats? Something like 2 out of every 3 people he's in prison with are Geminis. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Listen, that's a fact, man. Like I don't want to say it's a fact, but I've seen a bunch of studies on this. There's like 3 different astrological signs that are totally like violent offenders, or in, what was it? Was it like serial killers or something? A lot of them were Geminis, some of them were Pisces, and then there was another one. I forget the other one.
I would have went with Pisces. I would have, because there's something about Pisces and the criminal. I don't know, because so many people, when they're in jail or prison, they find God, they find Christ, and that kind of seems Piscean to me. I wonder what the third one would be.
I don't know. I'm looking it up real quick. I could have swore I saw one were Geminis too, though. Like, you got to double check this stuff too, though, man, because sometimes people throw stuff up, and here's a list of serial killers and their signs: Ted Bundy, Sag; Jeffrey Dahmer, Gemini; I think it was Virgo; Ed Gein, Virgo. Yeah, look at all these Geminis. Mary Bell, Gemini; David Berkowitz, Gemini; Kenneth Bianchi, Gemini; Richard Chase, Gemini. So it's mainly Geminis, Pisces, Virgos, and Sagittarius. Why? That's weird. There's not one single Taurus in this list.
Okay, so you're pretty familiar with astrology, obviously, right?
Yeah, somewhat. I would consider myself mid-level. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you know what a trine is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so your trine would be like August 1st and December 1st, let's say, just roughly. like the first decant of Leo and the first decant of Sagittarius being a fire sign, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So in traditional astrology, that would be considered a favorable week, right?
That's favorable. It's a favorable energy, trines, yeah.
So, okay, so I'm in jail, and I'm talking to my buddy Nick. He gets arrested in a trine week. And I was like, that makes no sense, because he was drunk driving, hit 2 people, okay?
Yeah. Damn.
Actually, a cop pulled him over, let him go, and told him to keep driving, just slow it down. And then he had that incident right afterwards. And so it was trying to his birthday, and I was like, that's so weird. That's a good week for you, and so that's a pattern I've seen at least 3 or 4 other times, because I got, everybody's birthday I was in there with and their incidents when it happened. And one way or another, they were almost all on favorable weeks for them.
It's like everything was backwards for them, huh? That's weird.
The other thing is it also depends on how you interpret favorable.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it might be favorable for them to have some kind of a spiritual karmic lesson, but in reality, it turns out to be one hell of a bitch of a thing that happens.
It's a game changer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I noticed, since your birthday, you said was April 1st.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So I'm a chef, right? And I was at a food convention, whatever, at a hotel, and I decided to just go back into the kitchen and talk to one of the chefs back there, and he's missing a thumb. And I ask everybody their birthday, pretty much, if it's not inappropriate. And I want to say he was either April 1st or April 2nd. And I said, oh, man, what happened to your thumb? He said, you won't believe it. I used to work in a machine shop on my birthday, cut his thumb off, got pulled into a machine or something like that.
Damn.
I was like, well, okay, now here's another one. You remember Siegfried and Roy?
Yep.
The one guy got bit by the tiger in the throat or something. That was on his birthday.
Man, you're starting to freak me out, man. What are you getting at here?
I was just throwing out interesting. I wasn't really getting at anything. I was just throwing out interesting observations.
But do you believe in astrology? Do you think there's something to it? I'm not saying that you believe it's totally accurate, but do you think that there's something to it?
Oh, 100% with that. So I spent probably 27 years of my life not really believing it. And there's this book called The Secret Language of Birthdays. So I'm in the bookstore, my wife opens it up, and she's like, oh, look at this. I'm the Day of Natural Appeal. If you haven't seen that book's amazing. There's 3 of them. Okay. So I bought it for her for Christmas, not knowing what to get the wife. I was like, oh, she'll like this book, I'll get it for her. So I read my birthday. I'm January 7th, the day of unusual interest. And I was like, this could be anybody. This is so vague. This is a general. So it just sits on the shelf for months and months. My friend Noel comes over, and I'm like, hey, man, I got this birthday book. Let's look you up. And he's March 29th, yeah. Reading it, like, I guess, is that called subjective? I always get subjective and objective reversed or whatever. Anyways, but seeing him, reading his and seeing him and knowing him how well he was, I was like, holy shit, this is so unbelievably accurate. Right to the point of the health advice was don't eat so much spicy food. So we worked in a kitchen together, and he was always saying, hey, man, you want to make some spicy food? He was always going after spicy food. I flipped to my page. It doesn't say nothing about me eating spicy food. I could take it or leave it, Yeah. So after reading his page, I was like, you know what? Let me read mine again. So I flipped through. I read mine with like a new set of eyes. I was like, this is incredible. And so I come from a large family. There's 14 of us. So I called up my mom. I was like, give me everybody's birthday. And so I just went through this book.
Yeah. Make sure, I'm just going to tell you, make sure that when you do this, that you get the birth time and that it's exact, right? And look at their whole chart too, because anytime you read a reading, you always got to ask yourself, like back up and ask yourself, would this apply to anybody? Would this be like a majority kind of thing, you know? So like if I read astrology, I tend to, because there's all kinds of stuff you can read that if you backed up, a lot of people would go, oh yeah, that's me, if they really think about it. But if you get into the depth of the chart, like the actual depth of the chart, understanding the segments, the signs, what's course, all the stuff that you're talking about, right? The aspects, and then you get into the segments of the chart and get real specific, you'll start to see things like that not everybody can say yes to. And that's where you got to pay attention to, I think, the most. Just in my opinion, though. I'm not even explaining what you've probably experienced something different, but at least you've experienced something enough to know, hey, there's something to this, you know.
Oh, I've seen. So that was like in 2000. So so for 24 years, I've asked everybody their birthday, and I probably have thousands of birthdays in my head. And I could guess birthdays, not all the time, but every now and then I'll just be like, I guess the guy's birthday, May 6th. Well, I said, when were you born? He's like, May. I was like, May 6th, isn't it? He's like, how'd you know that? I mean, because you just see these same trends, these same patterns, these same behavioral. I mean, there's so many dimensions to it, you know, the year. I mean, the year is a huge factor too. But sometimes you know what the other thing is, I don't know if you know this or not. Okay, when two people interact, there's a third energy created between them, and you can measure that on the zodiac wheel.
Yeah.
So if you tune into what that energy is, like whatever the equal distance between Aries and Capricorn is. So like our relationship might be, I don't know off the top of my head, but let's just say it's a Leo or something. Okay. Whatever the equal distance between your birthday and my birthday is the nature of our relationship.
I got
and
what you're
that
saying.
that has an actual personality. Now, if you interact with somebody born a week after me, you're going to have a different mathematical combination, which will correspond with a specific zodiac constellation. And so you'll have a different relationship with somebody born, you know. So you're going to get every sign of the zodiac interacting a different energy for everybody you interact with.
Right. Yeah, I believe that, man. And
so it's all math. I mean, that's how I perceive it. It all breaks down to math and angles.
Right on. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate you. It's pretty interesting stuff, and I'm glad that you're not locked up anymore, and I appreciate you coming over to listen, you know, and call in anytime, right, man.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
You too, brother. That's interesting stuff. I will say that we'll get back into this alchemy stuff here too, but I'll say that I understand where he's coming from, because if you get into this stuff a little bit, you'll start seeing patterns and things that kind of start making sense. I mean, between alchemy, the tree of life, and astrology, there is all kinds of stuff that get revealed. And then you get into sacred geometry and numerology. The mind can go all over the place for this stuff, for sure. That's why they teach it in steps, you know, because once your mind starts to open up to all this stuff, it gets heavy, for sure. Where did I leave off on this thing? Let's go to the chat here. Christy Crinkle. Me and my husband's family members' birthdays align, like my, aunt mothers are in July, our fathers are in September, one day apart, middle brothers June, youngest sibling in August. That's weird. Quantum grammar syntax structure. I'll check that out, man. I wrote it down too. But also, did I have this still pulled up? Serial killers. So you see this pattern. Ted Bundy is a Sag. Jeffrey Dahmer's a Gemini. Ed Gaines is a Virgo. I think those are the three that I saw a lot. It's these four: Sagittarius, Geminis, Pisces, and Virgos. Mary Bell is a Gemini. Leslie Bailey's a Pisces. George Chapman is a Sag. David Berkowitz a Gemini. Kenneth Bianchi's a Gemini. Let's see. Then, like, there's 3 Virgos here. That's so weird, man. But I'll go crazy thinking about that stuff. Like, why? And then I'll get into my chart and be like, okay, where's Gemini and Sag? And like, where's all the stuff in my birth chart? I try to stick to the basics. When I look at a birth chart, you know, they have the cross and the wheel. So right off the bat, there's some things that you can see on a birth chart that you don't have to specifically dig and interpret. Like right off the bat, you can see elementally, out of the 4 elements, which elements are heavier or lighter in a person. But you can also see how, like, are they more self-absorbed? And I hate to say this, but because I don't want you to look at your chart and go, oh, damn, I'm a self-absorbed. But like when it comes to people or their career, you can see if a person is more self-absorbed when it comes to their personal life and their career and external life, right? So I'll just say this. If you ever read a chart and most of the planets are in that bottom left corner segment, you're in trouble. That person is extremely self-absorbed and is probably pretty good at making you think they're not. I'm just saying. But there's a couple of, we could talk about that later. There's a couple of books that I think are really good that could help anybody nowadays, like pick apart a birth chart. But I wouldn't, I think a thing that happens with astrology is people read their birth charts and then they look at it like destiny, like it's not something that they can overcome or this is just the way I am. But in reality, it's just the print of the energies that were there when you were born. So I believe every 7 years you start to transcend these energies if you're working through your karmas and stuff. Unless you're doing the same shit you did in your past life over and over again, then it gets worse for you. But anyways, let's at least try to finish this alchemy segment, if we can. So where did I leave off? Salt, sulfur, and mercury are the answers to this problem. Okay, after many years of labor, he takes his little lamp and silently slips away. We read that part. And we read that part. So man has been an alchemist from the time when he first raised himself and with the powers long latent pronounced himself as human. Experiences are the chemicals of life which the philosopher is experimenting with. Experiences are the chemicals. Think about that. Your experiences are the actual chemicals in your laboratory of life, which you experiment with. Nature is the great book whose secrets he seeks to understand through her own wondrous symbolism. His own spiritual flame is the lamp by which he reads, and without this, the printed pages mean nothing to him. His body is the furnace. Remember, I told you guys this. His body is the furnace in which he prepares the stone. His senses and organs are the test tubes, and incentive is the flame from the burner. Salt, sulfur, and mercury are the chemicals of his craft. And according to the ancient philosophers, salt was of the earth, earthy. Sulfur was a fire which was spirit, while mercury was nothing, only a messenger like the winged Hermes of the Greeks. His color is purple, like the violet flame, right? Which is the blending of the red and the blue, or the masculine and the feminine, or the right brain and the left brain, or alpha and omega. The blue of the spirit and the red of the body. The alchemist realizes that he himself is the philosopher's stone, and that this stone is made diamond-like when the salt and the sulfur, or the spirit and the body, are united through mercury, the link of the mind. Man is the incarnated principle of mind, as the animal is of emotion. He stands with one foot on the heavens and the other on the earth. His higher being is lifted to the celestial spheres, but the lower man ties him to matter. Now the philosopher, building his sacred stone, is doing so by harmonizing his spirit and his body. The result is the philosopher's stone. The hard knocks of life chip away and facet it until it reflects light from a million different angles. The elixir of life is once again the spirit of fire, or rather the fuel which nourishes that fire. And the turning of the base metals into gold is accomplished when he transmutes the lower man into the spiritual gold. This he does by study and love. Thus he is building within himself the lost panacea for the world's woe. The turning of the base metal into gold can be called a literal fact, as the same chemical combination which spiritually produces gold will also do this physically. Holy shit, that's trippy. It's a fact. The turning of the base metal into gold can be called a literal fact, as the same chemical combinations which spiritually produces gold will do this physically. It is a known fact that many of the ancient alchemists really did create the precious metal out of lead, alloy, etc., but it was upon the principle that all things contain some part of everything else. In other words, every grain of sand or drop of water has in some proportion every element of the universe therein. Therefore, the alchemists did not try to make something from nothing, but rather to extract and build that which already was, and this, the study knows, is the only possible course of procedure. Man can create nothing from nothing, but he does contain within, in potential energy, all things, and like the alchemist with his metals, he is simply working with that which he already has. The living philosopher's stone is a very beautiful thing. Indeed, like the fire opal, it shines with a million different lights, changing with the mood of the wearer. The transmuting process, whereby the spiritual fire, passing through the furnace of purification, radiates from the body as the soul body of gold and blue, is a very beautiful one. Look at this. Well, let me see if you guys can see this, because this is another symbol this book is showing. The 5-pointed star, right? He says, this picture known to all Masons is that of the soul. It is the star of Bethlehem, which heralds the coming of the Christ within. The two clasped hands are the spirit and the body united in the marriage of the Lamb. It is from the union of the higher with the lower that Christ is born. More, look at these more evil masonry. You know, the people that kind of created the United States, those evil bastards. I mean, this is evil, right? This is what we're reading, pure evil. I'm just fucking with you. All right, so we're still getting into like this bridegroom or the marriage of the sun and the moon kind of thing. So here's another symbol, the marriage of the sun and the moon. This takes place in man when the heart and mind are joined in eternal union. It occurs when the positive and negative poles within are united, and from that union is made the philosopher's stone. Again, this is just Manly P. Hall talking about this same stuff that you and I have been talking about on this show forever. At least 10 years now, right? It's coming around. We're waking up, though. And that way we have the mystery of the philosopher's stone. The clasped hands represent the united man in which the higher and the lower are working for their mutual betterment by a cooperative rather than a competitive system. Well, that hasn't happened yet. The 5-pointed star is the soul body. Born of this cooperation, it is the living philosopher's stone, more precious than all the jewels of earth. From it pour the rivers of life spoken of in the Bible, but it is the star of the morning that heralds the dawn of mastery, the bright morning star, and is the reward that comes to those who follow in the footsteps of the ancient alchemist. It is the well for the student to realize that the alchemy of life produces in natural sequence all of the states of progression which are explained in the writings of the alchemist, until finally the sun and the moon are united as described in the Hermetic marriage, which is, in truth, the marriage of the body and the spirit for the mutual development of each other. We are the alchemists who centuries ago carried on in secret our studies of the soul, and we still have the same opportunity that we had then, even more than then. For now that we can state our opinions with little danger of personal injury. Yeah, they're not trying to kill you for talking about alchemy now, like they used to. The modern alchemist thus has an opportunity that his ancient brother never had. On a busy street corner, he daily sees nature's experiments carried on. He sees the mixing of metals, and from the everyday, the book of life, through the power of analogy, he may study divinity. Through experience and often suffering, the steel of his spirit is tempered by the flame of life. And as the moon in the zodiac touches off, like a fuse, the happenings of life, so his own desires and wishes touch off the powers of his soul, and the experiences may be transmuted into soul qualities when he has developed the eye which enables him to read the simplest of all books, everyday life. The alchemist of today is not hidden in caves and cellars studying alone, but as he goes on with his work, it is seen that the walls are built around him, and while he is in the world, like the master of old, he is not of it. As he goes further in his work, the light of other people's advice and outside help grows weaker and weaker, until finally he stands alone in darkness, and then comes the time that he must use his own lamp, and the various experiments which he has carried on must be his guide. He must take the elixir of life, which he has developed, and with it fill the lamp of his spiritual consciousness, and holding that above his head, walk into the great unknown, where, if he has been a good and faithful servant, he will learn of the alchemy of divinity. Where now test tubes, which you remember he said is your body, and bottles are his implements. Then worlds and globes he will study, and as the silent watcher will learn from the Divine One, who is the great alchemist of all the universe, the greatest alchemy of all, the creation of life, the maintenance of form, and the buildings of worlds. So he's hinting at, once you understand all the stuff that's happening within, then you're going to see why, like the same thing that's happening in the universe, again, which is being revealed nowadays. So this is coming from a Mason himself, a 33rd honor degree Freemason, Manly P. Hall, right? And here he talks about the pillars of the temple, this symbol. These pillars symbolize the heart and mind, the positive and negative poles of life. Those who would enter the temple must pass between the pillars. Every extreme is dangerous. It is the point between all poles that is safe to stand upon. You cannot enter the temple by the development of either the heart or the mind alone, but only by the equal development of both. Which is, you'll see that in a lot of tarot cards too. You'll see these two pillars, or pretty much every one of the cards will lay upon the tree of life. If you just see where the crown is, and some of them actually have, I think, what is it? The high priestess actually has the pillars behind her. So it's not all that scary. It's not all that evil. It's just a deeper understanding of things. And then when you get to the 150th degree of Freemasonry, you learn that you're worshiping the devil and that, you know, you're being ran by skin jobs. No, I'm just playing. I don't think that's true at all. All right. The next one is the serpent. I don't think I have, but the serpent goes back to Egyptian teachings and the Egyptian initiations. We can start it, but we'll have to finish. We'll have to wrap it up though. So he's got a picture of the serpent. This is the serpent crown of the ancient gods. It shows that the two paths or parts of the spirit fire have been united. This crown is the symbol of mastery, and the union takes place within the student when the life forces are lifted to the brain in the body. Chapter 4, the Egyptian initiate. Many ages have elapsed since the Egyptian priest king passed through the pillars of Thebes. Ages before the sinking of Atlantis, thousands of years before the Christian era, Egypt was a land of great truths. The land of the great white brotherhood was held out to the empire of the Nile, and the ancient pyramid passages resounded with the chants of the initiates. It was then that the Pharaoh, now called half-human, half-divine, reigned in ancient Egypt. Pharaoh is the Egyptian word for king, and many of the later pharaohs were degenerate and of little account. It is only the early pharaohs we now list among the priest kings. Try to picture for a moment the great hall of Luxor, its inscriptive columns holding up the domes of solid granite, each column carved with the histories of the gods. There at the upper end of the chamber sat the Pharaoh of the Nile in his robes of state, around him his counselors, chief among them the priests of the temple. An imposing spectacle it was, the gigantic frame of the latter Atlantean, robed in gold and priceless jewels, on his head the crown of the north and the south, the double empire of the ancient, and on his forehead the coiled serpent of the initiate, the serpent which was raised in the wilderness that all who looked upon it might live. That sleeping serpent, power in man, which coiled head downward around the tree of life, drove him from the garden of the Lord, but which raised up on the cross became the symbol of Christ. The Pharaoh was an initiate of Scorpio, and the serpent is the transmuted Scorpio energy, which working upward in the regenerated individual is called the Kundalini. The serpent was the sign of initiation. It meant that within him the serpent had been raised, for the true Pharaoh was a priest of God, as well as the master of men. And there he sat upon the cubed altar throne, indicating his mastery over the four elements of his physical body, a judge of the living and of the dead, who in spite of all his power and glory, having about him the grandeur of the world's greatest empire, still bowed in humble supplication to the will of the gods. In his hands he carries the triple scepter of the Nile, the shepherd's crook, and the Anubis-headed staff, and the flail or whip. These were the symbols of his work, and they represent the powers which he had mastered. With the whip he had subjugated his physical body, and with the shepherd's crook he was the guardian and keeper of his emotional body. With the Anubis-headed staff he was a master of his mind, and worthy to wield it. And with all the powers of government over others, because first of all, he obeyed the laws himself. And with all his robes of state, and with the scarab upon his breast, and with all-seeing eye above his throne, there was still nothing as precious or sacred to the ancient Egyptian priest-king as the triangular girdle or apron upon which was the symbol of his initiation. Now you know where the Masonic apron comes from, right? The apron of the ancient Egyptian carried with it the same symbolism as the Masonic apron of today. It symbolized the purification of the bodies when the seat of the lower emotions, Scorpio, was covered by the white sheepskin of purification. This symbol of the purification was the most precious belonging of the ancient Pharaoh, and this plain insignia, worn by many others below him in rank and dignity, but equal to him in spiritual purification, was the most precious of all things to the priest-king. And there he sat, written upon him in the words of the initiate, the symbols of his purification and mastery, a wise king of a wise people. And it was through these priest-kings that the divine worked, for they were the order of Melchizedek. Through them was formed the doctrine which degeneracy has not been able to entirely obliterate, which we know as the divine right of kings, divine because through spirituality and growth God was able to manifest through them. They were conscious instruments in the hands of a ready writer, willing and proud to do the work of those with whom, through knowledge and truth, they had attuned themselves. But the time came, as in all nations do, when selfishness and egotism entered the heart of the king and the people alike, and slowly the hand from the great white brotherhood that fed ancient Egypt was withdrawn, and the powers of darkness transformed the land of glory into one of ruins, and the names of the mighty kings were buried beneath the oblivion of degeneracy. Mighty cataclysm shook the world, and out of the land of darkness the great white brotherhood carried the chosen people into the promised land. Egypt, the land of glory, disintegrated into dust. And we'll stop there. I was hoping we would finish this thing, but we'll possibly finish it tomorrow. But I'll show you these three symbols here real quick. So you got this one, the Masonic apron. So in the triangle, we see spirit descending into the square of matter. Let us purify matter. The spirit may shine, so that the spirit may shine through it and make of us lights to guide the footsteps of humanity. And here's the scepters of Egypt. These are the three bodies that are the tools with which we build our temple. When they are mastered, they are the living proof of our right to kingship. So you can't think of this as government officials, kings, and all this other stuff. You have to think of this like this is you. So if you were to become a king of your own spiritual world kind of thing, You could use the symbolism. You don't have to, but you could use the symbolism to help. The sacred scarab. In this form, the ancient Egyptians worshipped Khepra, the rising sun, and the sacred scarab was buried with the dead in the symbol of resurrection. For as the sun rises from the darkness of night, so the divine spirit rises from the body that is no more, the life eternal. Pretty trippy stuff. All right, we're going to wrap this up. If you like the show, please support the Fringe FM if you can. You know, a lot of times we have the same people supporting, so if you've never supported, consider it. You know, any amount will help. All amounts help a lot. But you could also grab a T-shirt. I think Barefoot Hippie said that she was, what did you say? Didn't you say, let's see. I know you got a lot of scrying decks, too. I don't know who you're giving them away to, but that's pretty cool. I saw you say that. But there's a store at the Fringe FM, too. If you just go to fringe.fm/shop, there's T-shirts. There's all kinds of stuff in there. I have services that we do. You can get tarot readings. There's a Patreon. There's tons of ways to support. And all the links are in the videos as well, or the podcast descriptions. And then if you want, just like or review the show too. Man, we got to get out of here. Man. Hope you enjoy the rest of your night. And if you want to continue to read that book, you can read it, like, obviously on archive.org. It's called The Initiates of the Flame by Manly P. Hall. One of my faves. All right. I think that's it. Good night, y'all.